What does it do to a group of people when the places they live in do not reflect who they are? This video is a continuation of the third video on my short series. One thing I wish we could decolonize, the way we build our African cities. Seems like every African city is trying to build into this ideal that doesn't feel African at all.
I'm a condo, I'm a combo. This is my life, I ain't gon' lie. This is my shit. As a bad boy, we get OT, stacking paper, playing nicely. Lionel Messi, thank God we delight. More blessings, seeing clearly. I'm getting. I know sending anybody. That's the way see me, not me. I
Only one village still creates houses this way, and this is what architecture looks like when culture builds it, not concrete. You see, far in southern Burkina Faso lies a small village named Tiebele, where time moves slowly and the earth itself seems alive. Homes rise from the simple clay, straw, and wood. They are hand-built by the men of the village. They're shaped and molded with care. And when the heart stands strong, the women come out. With natural earth pigments, they paint every wall. Think swirling lines, bold shapes, stories of their lives, their beliefs, and their spirit. The doors are small and the windows are almost hidden, but the thick walls keep out heat and wind, sheltering families in the cool calmness.
So most people still perceive this house, the hut, as a sign of poverty. I've been trying to explain this over and over again. I always emphasize this is not having this hut is not a sign of poverty. People in these communities use this hut. First of all, is a cultural identity, and secondly, the environment here is very, very, very hot, and this house has a natural ventilation, so it's the most convenient to live in as compared to the zinc roofings. And also another.
Yes, I understand that cities are complicated. I understand that construction costs money. I understand that speed is necessary. Investors want returns in due time. We need to build infrastructure quickly because we have a big population. Regulations, zoning laws, economics influence what gets built and how the buildings look like. I know all of that, yet I still feel justified to complain about it. So let's leave the known architectural frameworks, architectural best practices, and let's leave the spreadsheets out of this conversation. Let's think outside the box, please. When I look at most African cities today, African capitals, I don't love what I see. Same concrete boxes, same narrow glass towers, same style of apartment complexes, same vision, same aspiration, copy-paste blueprint. Only certain cultural centers and malls stand out to me as being architecturally beautiful and aesthetically African. It's as if most African cities are trying to become the same place, following the same architectural ideals that don't even fit our climate. I've lived in Asia, I've lived in Europe, and now I'm traveling Africa. In many parts of Asia and Europe, the cities themselves tell you who they are. Yes, some of the cities are very similar, but you can still, there are aesthetic signs that show you, you're in Indonesia, you're in Singapore, you're in Bangkok, you're in Kuala Lumpur. There's a little bit of identity in each of their capital cities. And the smaller the cities, the stronger the cultural identity. I understand that not every pre-colonial African society built, palaces. Our traditional architecture varies from different African regions. But that doesn't mean we have nothing to draw from. We have indigenous building techniques, local materials, cultural symbols, patterns. We have design philosophies that could inspire our modern architecture. I would love to see us rescue those ideas so that we can build African cities in the future that reflect our own history and identity instead of simply copying the concrete glass tower blueprint that's being repeated all over the world. And I know that architecture is dictated by economic viability, but I don't care. I just care about what I see, and what I see is repetition and lack of African identity in all of these boring buildings. Which one is more interesting to look at? Which one? I'm aware that investors are the ones deciding what the building looks like because it's their money, but it's still sad that we can't have cities that reflect our cultural aesthetic. I'm not rejecting development, but I'm absolutely rejecting how we are just copying these buildings. Since most developers are foreign, We are just allowing them to build whatever they feel like, just because it's their money, without pushing back and demanding that the buildings represent the land and its people. Look at Zanzibar. I can't believe they're building things like this in Zanzibar. Zanzibar has so much historical architecture to draw inspiration from, and these are the stuff they're building in the coast. I'm sorry. Architecture is identity made visible. Buildings tell stories, cities tell stories. And right now, I think most African cities are telling a story that's not their own. Most of our cities tell the stories of our colonizers somehow. For instance, in Mozambique, where I'm from, most of the historical buildings that make our city beautiful reflect Portuguese history in Mozambican soil. Yes, the buildings are beautiful. I've raved about a few of them on my content. They're beautiful, but they're not indigenous. They don't tell the story of my ancestors who were going through hell at that time. Let's go over some pushback I received from this video, and let me expand a little bit on my counter arguments. So here is basically talking about capitalism, which is one of the biggest enemies of this whole movement of Africanizing. But again, when there's a will, there's a way. In these two comments, the pushback is mostly about the feasibility of things. And as I said, I'm just here to present the vision. We have to think outside the box before we try to fix everything. The solution is not easy, but it requires determination and the will to research and to find alternative methods.
Located in Niamey, the Classe Rouge project designed by ACTA was completed in 2023. Built with a budget of less than $50,000, it combines stabilized earth blocks with an innovative catenary arch structural system and a reusable mobile formwork for fast, low-cost construction. Designed to remain naturally cool in Niger's extreme climate, it reduces indoor temperatures while using minimal materials and local resources. Affordable, sustainable, and easy to replicate, the project demonstrates how architecture can deliver resilient learning environments where they are needed most.
Funny thing is, right after I published this video, DW released this documentary that pretty much validated all of our thoughts. Many of us are uncomfortable with the way our cities look, even if you don't talk about it. Many of us are uncomfortable with how hot our homes are because they're made of concrete, even if we don't talk about it.
What if cement buildings are manufacturing poverty and mud is the solution? Let's get into it. Across African cities, we keep designing concrete and glass buildings designed for Europe and North America. I mean, we too. In this heat, those buildings are not made for this environment. They trap heat, they block airflow, and they force us all to rely on air conditioning. That means higher bills, unstable power, noisy generators, constant heat stress. Now compare that to mud-based construction. Buildings made with rammed earth or compressed earth blocks have thick, breathable walls and a high thermal mass. I'm sweating. Whew. They absorb heat during the day and release it slowly at night. That's 5 to 10 degrees Celsius cooler without air conditioning. Constant exposure to artificial cooling, poor ventilation, and heat spikes is linked to respiratory issues, cardiovascular stress, and sleep deprivation. Now let's talk about the green. Let's talk about the money. Cement is expensive, imported, carbon heavy. Mud is local, abundant, biodegradable. There's a reason why our ancestors were using it. I think our current building practices are quietly locking millions of people into energy poverty. So now let's imagine a different policy future. What if government mandated that moving forward, 80% of all public buildings, that is schools, clinics, community centers, be built using mostly earth-based materials? And what if private developers who use mostly mud as a building material get significant tax breaks and fast-track approvals? Wouldn't the skyline be J? You know what we'd get? Cooler buildings, healthier indoor spaces, cheaper construction. The future of African development isn't trying to look like Dubai with all these concrete skylines. Maybe it's about smarter earth.
As I mentioned on the intro, conversations about cities are usually dominated by practical concerns, right? Infrastructure, transportation, return of investment, cost efficiency, speed. But guess what matters more than all of that? Beauty. Beauty affects us every single day. Beauty influences how we feel when we walk through a neighborhood. Whether we feel inspired, connected, proud, or indifferent to everything that's around us. Beauty shapes our experience of a city in ways that may not be measured but are impossible to ignore. We Africans especially underestimate how much our surroundings affect our self-esteem. When people live in places that reflect their own culture, their values, their identity, it creates a sense of belonging. It reminds them that they are part of something bigger than themselves. But when every building you see looks like it could be anywhere, then something has been lost. The cities can become functional, but they become less meaningful. Beauty is an economic asset. Beautiful places attract tourists because humans are drawn to beauty. Tourists walk the streets of a city, admire architecture, take photos, and they keep coming back because the city itself, the beauty of a city, becomes the destination. That is the experience. And listen, just like many Africans, I love going to Europe. Most European cities are worth visiting because they are beautiful. They're beautiful. They are enjoyable to walk in, especially in the summer. And fair enough, the areas of the city that are most beautiful are the old ones, which were built hundreds and hundreds years ago, when beauty was mandatory. Rome, an iconic city without skyscrapers. Zero glass tower madness. People return time and time again because it's nice to walk around and being surrounded by beauty, history, identity. When tourists come to much of Africa, let's say East Africa, they are coming for the natural beauty. Safaris, mountains, beaches, islands. Very few tourists care to explore African cities, and I don't blame them. I make videos about African cities, and many times I need to cut scenes that are just ugly because the city is not cooperating with my videos. And that is why I'm actually moving away from making videos about African cities, if I'm being honest. Even when an African city has beautiful restaurants, malls, museums, cultural centers, nightlife, the city as a whole is not distinctive enough to make someone want to stick around for 1 week exploring the city by foot. We are leaving both cultural pride and tourism revenue on the table by underestimating how powerful and beautiful Afrocentric cities could be. One thing that fascinates me is how often Africans define success through comparison, right? This city wants to become the Dubai of Africa. This city wants to become the Singapore of Africa. Another city wants to become the New York of Africa. Why is that always the goal? Why is being ourselves never enough? Decenter the West, guys. I beg. I'm not Nigerian, but I beg. Decenter the West. Our cities shouldn't need foreign references or even Asian references. A confident city develops its own identity, its own aesthetic language, its own story. Here are some interesting thoughts of rescuing African identity in architecture.
So Chris, many cities are copying European styles of building. How is Ubora design bringing back the African architecture to life?
First, we hire Tanzanian architects. We work with students when they're still in school, and we're not asking them to do big glass buildings in the middle of town. We're asking them to think of their great-grandparents and the legacy that they had and the building style that they had and how to incorporate that into modern architecture and resolving the problems that we have with when we try and import a European building into an equatorial country.
A city is a reflection of what a society values, and right now many African cities are communicating the same message. We want to be somewhere else. What would an unapologetic African city look like? We now have AI on our fingertips to help us visualize possibilities. These images make me really happy. It's possible, just like Burj Khalifa was possible. These buildings are also possible. I created a whole Pinterest account for Africanized, so link below, lots of boards and inspiring images there. The only thing we can dream about is building better cities because the current ones are ugly beyond repair, in my opinion. I don't see how you can mask all of these disjointed architectural choices that are lumped together. I'm making this video in hopes that we can, if any of you is rich enough to build your own African city, consider the aesthetics, please. If I ever have enough money to build my own city, you already know it's going to look beautiful. I'm speaking as a traveler, an observer. We are in dire need of cultural confidence, cultural self-esteem. That's the only way we'll be able to decolonize and Africanize African cities, African architecture. Let's use our imagination. Many of us have the possibility to buy land. Let's start with the houses we build for ourselves. The only thing that helps me sleep at night is that my house is going to be a modern mud hut. Let's do the work. Let's research. Let's try. It's trial and error most of the times. And I know, you don't want to lose your money by trying something new. But guess what? If we all think that way, we will forever be copying other people. That becomes more expensive in the long run. So again, let's start with the homes we build for ourselves. Let's start with the buildings we build for ourselves. Let's start with the hotels we decide to build. Let's start with the office spaces we decide to build. Let's start expressing our cultural identity in our architecture more. Please!